Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
200 and I think this is the 17th, 217th or 27th. I don't, and I still almost say welcome to the Enjoy Stick Podcast every fucking week when we start. We haven't done that show in 6 years, 5 or 6 years, I think.
But we are getting probably close to having more episodes of this than that.
Yeah.
So,
old habits, I guess. Anyway, this is not the Enjoy Stick Podcast, unless you want it to be. You can, yeah.
No, this is some other bullshit. I don't know where you found this crap. I don't know why. I don't know why you would click on this fucking mess unless you love stories
and humor that only like two of us think is funny.
You love ass cracking wise.
I always feel a little guilty putting the humor tag on our shows, honestly, when we put them up. It's like, yeah, we'll file this under comedy.
I don't know. I'm funny. I'm a funny guy.
My mom says I'm funny. No, she doesn't. My mom would hate my sense of humor.
No, my mom's very disappointed with me. Mostly about this show.
Right. And I can't blame her.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to our merry time, our half an hour to an hour boogabanza. I'm really tired today.
I want to start a restaurant, and that'll be our like commercial. It's come on in for our boogabanza.
Why don't you use our boogabanza for your next event?
My dream, and I've talked about it on the show before. Probably this one, definitely the old one. But I had a habit in school of just making up words when we'd do reports and just inserting them in. Always putting them in a place where like their supposed meaning would make you just get it through context. Mm-hmm. But I just pull something out of my ass to see if any like of the professors or teachers would call me on it, and they never once did.
Yeah.
So now I want to take that to the next step, become a business owner that has local commercials, and you make up words, but you just say them like they're completely normal. Just keep going.
That philosophy is still there. You just make up words, and then you like name some bullshit crypto after it.
Well,
so it's, yeah. So it's like, I didn't make up the word Vacorium. I made a digital coin that, for some reason, turns into millions of dollars for me. But for you, it's just one Vacorium.
And may disappear overnight.
Yeah. Someone hacks your wallet.
Yeah, I guess that's a good fucking point. For the last, 20-some years since I've been out of school, I always felt like, not smart, but like, haha, I got away with... That's the whole fucking culture anymore, is people don't make up words, they make up business models, like services that... Like, yeah.
It's literally like your first or second story on this podcast was like the realization of like, my God, everyone's a con man. Like, our entire society's built on it.
I think for the first year we had like 4 or 5 stories of people. I remember the doctor that was just declared that inserting goat testicles in guys' scrotums made them like cured impotence and erectile dysfunction, and people did it even though like 80% of his customers like died from horrible infection. Of course,
you're telling me I'll have my dick back.
Yeah. And then there was the one we did on a guy that invented a machine that ran off of like Ethereum or something that he made up, and he made a buttload of money before people are like, wait a minute, none of this exists.
My dick still doesn't work. What in tarnation?
Guy with the rain machine. We did a lot of con men. I need to get back to that. Although, honestly, that was one of the topics I looked at this week, was famous like cons and how they fell. And the problem is it's rife. I mean, there's a shitload of cons, but most of them we've talked are the kind of stories that you can't. It's hard to do a full episode on, because it's like, oh, this person. There was literally one. I was going to put it in my notes, but I don't have to because it's easy to remember the whole story. He was considered the first one that it's where the term con man came from. It was a guy in New York City back in like the 1800s. His whole con, it was genius. He had to spend like months figuring this out. He'd go up to random strangers on the streets of New York City and say, hey, would you trust me with your watch for a day? And people would fucking give him their expensive watches. Like, yeah, I think I would. Complete stranger. And he'd just take them and steal them and sell them.
That's not a con.
No, because if you're that dumb...
Yeah, like...
He didn't... He especially if you just say, would you trust me for a day? Because you're not saying, I will give it back. You're saying, do you think I'll give it back?
That could imply, like, do you trust me to give this watch a good home in one day? You know?
But that's considered a famous con, and then it's like, and then it didn't even have a good downfall story. It was just eventually one of the guys whose watches he'd stolen, like, saw him on the street and recognized him, and the cop was standing there, and he's like, "Hey, cop, this guy stole my watch."
Yeah,
like,
I don't like calling that a con though, because it's like, by that logic, it's like, you know, holding up a sign by the side of the road. That's not a con. That's just asking for you to give me your shit, and then you give it to me. Like,
yeah.
I think a con needs an element of trickery.
Yeah. Like another one that I read, and again, it wasn't long enough for the story, and I don't know the names because I didn't write them down, but it was some woman in France that got famous as a psychic. You know, we've had a ton of them over here, too. That who was that one that was for years? Madam something on TV. But once she gained some notoriety as a psychic, they started the survey. Basically, a company contacted her and said, "Hey, we use your name, and we're going to sell psychic readings." But they billed it as like you'd pay $40 a letter, and you'd write her a letter, and she'd write you a personal letter back herself. And as it turns out, she wasn't writing shit. This company was just making letters that looked handwritten. They'd even put like coffee stains and wrinkles and stuff in them. And they were selling them by the thousand. I think they said they made like $2.5 million on this scheme until the U.S. Postal Service, basically, because it was out of France, but they, you know, it's postal fraud.
Yeah.
So eventually the U.S. stepped in and was like, fucking stop it.
But I love the coffee stain bit of it, because it's like, yeah, you know, there's somebody like, yeah, this isn't making it look more or less legit. It just makes it gross. Yeah. Please stop dumping coffee on these things. But the thing that shocked me with that one is like, oh yeah, eventually the U.S. government stepped in after the Postal Service got involved, and they shut her down in 2014. It's like, oh, that's a very recent fraud. Although again, that's one. It's fraudulent, but I feel like it's so nakedly fraudulent that it's kind of on you. Well, I don't want to like victim blame, but to me, it's not a con if it's so direct, like, and like if you build up a fantasy, if I ask for $10 and you somehow turn that question into, if I give him $10, he might give me 100 tomorrow, like, then that's, you conned yourself, like,
right.
But if I tell you, like, I can give you 100 tomorrow, then yeah, I'm a fucking weasel.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, and like you said, you don't want to victim blame. And they did say in the case of the psychic thing, they were specifically targeting like widowed, older, lonely, people that are easy to prey on.
Yeah, people psychics tend to go after is like, the people who are most like vulnerable and can be manipulated. So.
And honestly, like you said, they probably wouldn't have gotten themselves in trouble if they didn't say they were personal letters from the psychic. If they just said, for a psychic reading from, Psychic Inc. or whatever, send us $40. But anyway.
So buy high on Vacorium from me.
So yeah, we've done a lot of con stories, and I was just literally looking into them this week, and those were some of the things I came across. I do not have a con story this week. In fact, I expect to hear a huge exhale from you. I don't really have a story. I'm finally breaking the streak, and I've got a creepypasta.
Boo.
Boo.
Boo, get him out of here.
I thought you'd go like, fuck yeah, I've got 8 of them lined up. I don't have to work again for the rest of the year.
Nah, it's actually harder to find creepypastas right now, I'll be real.
I'll tell you, and this one's going to be short, but I liked it. I read the whole thing instead of doing my normal, like, this sounds interesting, let's see where it goes. Oh, fuck, that went really poorly. But it's a very familiar one, like, to the point, and we've talked about it before, but again, I had a very real panic attack, like, 10 minutes before the show, like, have we done this one? And I know there's one that you did that this specifically reminds me of, and I knew that one was different, but then it's like, you start to get that thing in the back of your mind, like, but...
Yeah.
did we do this one? But as far as I can tell, we didn't. And if we did, I'll do it better than we did the first time. Unless you did it, then it'll be worse.
Well, it's the same ingredients, honestly, so it'll probably be about on par. So if you loved episode 136, you're in for a real treat.
Yeah, I'm just going to add some sprinkles this time. I was going to try to do the whole thing in the voice of Keanu Reeves from Bill and Ted, but I can't do voices. We've established that long ago. So this story is called A 911 Call Where Nothing Made Sense by my_outlaw_. And I assume the outlaw part of that name is putting the second underscore at the end. Like I get joining two words with it, but then it's just there again. Like, yeah, ha ha.
Yeah.
You can't tell me how to punctuate. Things were fucked from the beginning. A woman named Carol dials 911 and claims that somebody's inside her house. We go investigate, searching the place inch by inch, but find nothing. And I love that. That's where it hooked me, is the inch by inch when you're looking for a person in a house. Like, are they behind this book?
Yeah.
Nope.
I mean, that's kind of what cops do, though. I remember we had, like, a home invader scare, and, like, you either get, like, the person who thinks they're Sherlock Holmes, or, like, you do, like, one look under a deck, and then you're like, what?
It's probably a raccoon. There's like a guy standing there with a lampshade on his head.
Literally, the fucking cops like, you should get a security system. I'm like, that's great. That'll save me tonight. Now? Yeah.
So anyway, usually this could be easily explained away. The mind of an older person living alone eventually starts deteriorating. The onset of dementia and other mental illness issues start to take their toll on lives. Quite sad, really. However, this woman is only 24. In other words, the probability of all this being inside her head is extremely unlikely.
No mental issues at the age of 24. I've never seen the world more clearly than when I was 24.
I feel like this had to be written by a young person, because there's that clear, like, all old people are fucking stupid. You know, they lost their minds. But young people...
Yeah, with our fucking case of $1.25 wine, we see things for what they are.
She also seemed to be terribly distraught by the whole situation. Why would she be acting? I don't know. You've just listed like 8 reasons in a single sentence. If you've ever watched the show Cops, as much as you may or may not hate it, we've all seen people that are just... What's that? I always forget the term. The people that, like, anytime they have a sneeze, they think it's cancer, like every medical thing. Yeah. There's definitely people that are that equivalent of, like, just this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Fuck, I've got family members, like extended ones on Facebook, that are like, guys, you all need to know this. I went to Walmart. It's always Walmart. And on my way back to the car, there was a guy with a red hat and a guy with a yellow hat. They were clearly in a sex trafficking ring. Like, but that's the only thing, is like 2 guys with 2 different colored hats. And it's like, so yeah, there's plenty of people of all ages that... Anyway, according to the story, however, she was very convincing. We leave her place after telling her she should probably have an alarm system, and tell her to contact us if she sees anything again. I mean, we couldn't really do anything at that point. We were somewhat surprised when we got another call from her the very next day. Drive down...
Like, they really should, like, have just, like, a dummy or something in, like, the trunk of their car that they can, like, pull out and be like, yeah, we got the bastard. And be like, take care, ma'am.
Yeah, but cops, and I say this, like, I'm saying this against cops, I would do this as 1,000% too. You're always looking for excuses to fire your gun. If you watch the news, sometimes way too far with that. Yeah. So be like, we've got the guy, hey, he's got a weapon. And you just...
How great would that be? You pull a dummy out from, like, under some shit, and then just start lighting it up. And then you
stop resisting.
And then you tell the fucking homeowner, like, you just shut the fuck up about what you saw tonight. We just saved your life.
You never saw us.
We're in this together now.
Yeah. Your fingerprints are all over this gun. Anyway, we were somewhat surprised to get another call from her the next day. We drive down there and search the house again. We find nothing. Again. Problem is, the house seems different this time, almost as if there was some subtle detail that made it a separate place from the one we were in yesterday. My partner, Beck, says that he noticed that as well, but couldn't quite understand what was wrong. So they had 2 turntables and a microphone. We decided not to say anything about this, as we tell Carol that we came up with nothing. However, she tells us to stay. I recorded him, she says. I'm glad she didn't start with that.
That's weird.
Yeah. She takes out her phone and tells us to watch this video that she pulls up. It was footage of her in the house. She's running around, breathing frantic. And when we see him, a large figure, covered head to toe in what appears to be a black bodysuit.
A big panda head on top.
He lumbers towards the camera as Carol screams and ducks into a room, locking it from inside. There's a few bangs on the door before we hear footsteps walking away. So I love that too. This big, lumbering, shadowy, dark figure, but she locks the door and it's like, fuck, I guess she got me.
Pizza's here.
Yeah, it's that guy from that movie where his face got like burned off as a kid. I don't know, there are lots of movies like that. He's just got some disability or disfigurement, and he's self-conscious about it, so he wears a mask, and she's just screaming. He's like, you fucking ordered Donato's again 2 nights in a row. Like, we just went through this, Carol. Anyway, we could hear footsteps walking away. We don't know how to react to this footage, but we try anyways. We come to the conclusion that the man must have left once Carol got behind the door.
We don't know how to react to this, but we try. So it's like, we don't know whether to be happy or sad watching footage.
I'm picturing that woman from the I Think You Should Leave sketch we were talking about last week. Probably not on the air, but where the Shark Tank like spoof where she's just like, rah! Like that's like we don't know how to react.
Don't bring me a bad deal or I'll
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what they did. They looked at each other and just went with their hands up in the air.
Officer, I'm scared.
We try to figure out how to react anyway. Come to the conclusion that the man must have left after Carol got behind the door. However, the front door was locked when we came, and Carol told us she hadn't left the room. Did he also have keys to her house? It would explain a lot, but it also made the situation worse. I always love that. Like, that's kind of an old trope, like, well, the door was locked. How would it be locked if he's gone outside? It's like, I don't know, for the last, like, my whole lifetime, front doors to houses you can lock from the inside and still shut behind you. Like... it'd be weird to do that if you were a home invader, but it's not like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But anyway. We decide to keep an eye on her house for the night. Probably a good idea if you're a cop that knows somebody keeps breaking in. We're discreet, like, parking about a block down the road at an unmarked car. So that's weird, because that implies then that they showed up in a squad car with the lights on, and then they, like... just got out of that car and got into an unmarked car. So there's still a squad car sitting there.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're both fully awake, ready to go as soon as we see some sketchy shit. Like, are you ready, Beck, when you see sketchy shit?
I've been waiting my whole life
to
see swing my little brick bat at some sketchy shit.
At around 2 a.m., we see somebody walking across the road towards her house. However, it isn't the man. It's Carol herself.
Beck and I tackle her.
Stop resisting. Stop resisting. We must have had the same look on our faces. What the fuck? And again, she had DoorDash in her hand. Like, this is all just a woman that uses food delivery services but doesn't understand how they work.
Yeah.
We get out of the car and make our way over there, knocking hard on the front door. However, nobody answers. We can see lights flicking on and off intermittently, but we're not sure what that's supposed to mean. Was she trying to tell us to leave? I love this cop's reactions to stuff. They get better, too, by the way. It's like, okay, we know a woman that's had troubles with a supposed stalker. She's inside. Nobody's coming to the door. Lights are flickering. She must want us to just go home.
Yeah.
Like,
well, nothing more we can do here. Case closed.
We get a call from dispatch a few moments later. They're telling us that Carol has called 911 again, saying that there are now multiple people in her house. They ask if we need backup. We say yes.
We say we are the backup, and then we pull out shotguns.
No, we're backing up.
Yeah.
To our car and leaving.
No, this is something I need to do myself.
This time, it's personal.
And then, I tried to do my best Jason Statham, but then I got thrown out a window. Turns out they're way stronger than me.
Whoops.
We need backup. Yep, bring them.
Dispatch, I've underestimated my abilities once again.
Dispatch, you should have never given me this badge and gun. I've lost every fight.
We had that story, too, about the real-life Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Without another moment of hesitation, we force the door open and barge in. The living room lights still flicker on and off.
Needless to say, this party was bumping.
But we see the light switch and nobody is touching it. We call out for Carol, but nobody responds. In fact, the place is dead quiet. I can see the neighboring house is starting to turn their lights on from the commotion.
And turn them off again, and turn them on and off in rhythm.
Again. They might have wanted us to leave.
Yeah.
We rush up the stairs and start sweeping each room. And I think he means literally, like, they grab a broom. They're like, fuck, it's dusty up here.
Yeah, it's like
fuck,
those,
Carol?
It's like those push brooms. So it's like they're just like ninja running down aisles.
Mm-hmm. We start sweeping each room, but there's nothing. Once again, we search the place inch by inch, but nothing is in here. Not even Carol, who we clearly saw enter a few moments earlier. As I pace around in petrified confusion, Beck speaks up. There's rooms that shouldn't be here. What the hell are you talking about, Beck? I ask in response. I added the Beck because it's flavor. I've been counting, he says. There were 9 total the last time we came. There are 10 now. You didn't notice?
You're counting rooms? What a douche.
I mean, Beck could be like Rain Man. I mean, don't shame for, like, their little quirks.
Beck is... You're looking at the wrong details, Beck. Like, yeah, this might be a fucked up mystery house, but that's not important. What's important is this woman's probably dead.
And I need to know where I can buy me one of those bodysuits. Yeah. That's why he's desperate to find this guy. He liked it. He's like, that's a hell of a fashion sense. Imagine if I pulled somebody over for DUI and walked up in that. They'd fucking freak. Anyway. 9 total rooms last time, 10 now. You didn't notice? I force myself to think hard, which tells us a lot about our main protagonist. He's like,
I got a bloody nose. I thought too hard.
Think. Subconsciously, I knew that something was off, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what. However, I eventually realized the thing that I was just literally just told. The basement. There was only 1 door down there last time. Beck nods. 2 now. I don't know what to think. I look at my surroundings and try to make an assessment, but there's really none that can be made. We hear a knock on the door about 10 seconds later. It sounds agitated. We look out the living room windows, but aren't met with the red and blue police lights. We're hesitant to answer, of course. I decide to take a step forwards, but Beck pulls me back. He looks at me and shakes his head, whispering, "We left the door open, remember?" He was right. My radio starts crackling. Another call from dispatch. They're telling us that we need to leave the house immediately. That Carol called again, saying we were going to die, in a deathly monotone voice. The knocking had stopped, but we can hear footsteps in the basement. Something is in here with us. We decided that this was enough. We needed to get the fuck out of there. Which again... I like, yeah.
Only the bravest in badges, folks.
Yeah. As we start descending the steps, we hear a voice coming from the kitchen. Carol comes out, blocking our path to the door. She looks detached, with blank, beady eyes staring right at us. "Did you find him?" she asks, without any semblance of emotion in her voice. "I think he might be in the basement. Why don't you go check?"
You don't boss around the LAPD, ma'am.
Beck and I were frozen in shock. Then we pulled our guns and shot the fuck out of her. Oh, no. She just keeps looking at us, gesturing towards the basement door every now and then. The footsteps down there sound like they're running in circles now. We ignore her request, abruptly brushing past her and bolting out the front door. The backup still isn't here, so we decide to just get into our car. However, we see somebody down the street peering through our driver's side window. Which is weird. Like, if they're down the street, they're peering through, like, all your windows at that point. It's hard to look in one window when you're a block away, but whatever. He's large, dressed in what appears to be a black bodysuit.
And in charge.
He looks away from the window and directly at us. It's hard to tell from this far, but the suit doesn't seem to have any eye holes. I wonder if he means, like, down the street, like this thing's in their car looking, like, out the driver's side window. I think maybe that's where... Like, I was picturing that they already got in their car and then looked out and saw this guy, but I think I got it backwards.
That'd be really funny, though. Like, you're trying to stop a home intruder or some shit, and he, like, loops around in such a way to steal your car.
That happens all the time, but it's even funnier to me if they don't even steal your car. They're just sitting in it looking at you like, what the fuck are you going to do now, assholes? Beck speaks up. "Sir, please step back from the vehicle." His voice cracks in the middle of the sentence. He's terrified. But apparently not as terrified as you, who didn't fucking do a thing.
But please,
main character.
Please, sir. Step away.
As soon as Beck stops talking, the figure starts running towards us. It's fast. Too fast. In the time that it takes for us to pull our guns, we've realized that it's actually moved past us into the house. We waste no more time running into the car. So yeah, that's what it was. This thing was at their car, and they'd basically pass each other like, yoink!
Yeah, that's, not gonna lie, that's some real bitch shit.
We ran into the car and locked the doors, waiting until backup arrives. So at least they didn't just, like, leave. They're like, "We're gonna be brave when there's more of us. Just you wait and see."
Yeah, fuck Carol.
When backup finally arrives, we're extensively questioned while what appears to be a SWAT team searches the house. However, it isn't the police chief asking us. Instead, it's some guy in a suit that we've never seen before.
Tommy Lee Jones.
We answer him anyway because at this point we don't fucking care who takes over. Like, you could be the block watch. I don't care. You're in charge now, bitch. He asks us things like, how many doors were there in the house? And what did Carol look like exactly? And did we ever see a man with one eye wandering around? We answer inconclusively because we're cops. We don't have any sense of perception, I guess.
Yeah.
To pretty much all of them.
The suspect was a generic minority.
Did you see a one-eyed guy? I don't know. What color was he?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw a race. All I saw was race.
We have no idea what the hell is going on. At one point, we see SWAT members carrying multiple stretchers outside and loading them into their truck. Not an ambulance, mind you, but their own truck. Eventually, the man who was questioning us tells us to go home and report to the station as usual. He tells us not to worry about what we've seen here. I like that too. It's not like don't talk about it. Don't worry.
Don't worry about it. You worry too much.
When your chief asks you where the fuck you've been for the last 2 days, your whole shift, just say, don't worry about it, chief. Some guy in a suit told us it's fine.
You're gonna have to write a report. Nah, it's cool.
Nah. Well, who was this guy? We don't know. We never seen him before.
He had the air of authority.
I don't know how he expects us to do that. We drive back to the station in complete silence. As we park, Beck finally lets out a sigh. Jack is fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, bro.
I look at him in confusion. What are you talking about? Who the hell is Jack? He reciprocates an equally confused stare at me. What the hell are you talking about? The dude who owns the house. What? It was that lady named Carol. How'd you forget that already? We hold each other's chaotic gaze for what feels like a minute. I love the phrase. Yeah, well, that's the next logical.
I've never held a chaotic gaze that didn't end in smoochies.
Chaotic gaze is interesting to me because that's one of those phrases where the two words kind of mean two different things. Because gaze usually means like you're just staring at something, but chaotic means all over the place. So the only way I can picture that is if their eyes stay locked, but their heads are like just jerking. Like
you can only really have a chaotic gaze with like an axe over your head. Like,
right, yeah. I guess that picturing like. Jack Nicholson from The Shining or Willem Dafoe from fucking anything Willem Dafoe's in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I guess that's what they mean. But we hold each other's gaze for what feels like a minute, which I love that too. It's like, it feels like about a minute.
It's probably like, not that, just 10 seconds.
Yeah, not that long, but longer than it was uncomfortable. But we say nothing further. We both silently exit the vehicle and start heading our separate ways home. We both know that something's terribly wrong with the other. I try not to think about it much as my head hits the pillow. I manage to drift off to sleep about 3 hours later, only to be woken up immediately by the telephone. Barely coherent, I answer it. "We need you. A woman dialed 911. She says somebody's in her house." My heart sinks slightly. It sinks completely when he tells me the address. It's Carol's. I hang up the phone and slump into bed. I just want this nightmare to end. All you had to do is say I'm not fucking on duty.
Yeah,
this town has other cops. Send them. Yeah. Have you rung Beck up yet?
Yeah,
I mean... Anyway, that's the end of the story. It's one of those... When I read it, it's like... It's all over the place, and I kind of like loved the very campy, very internet creepypasta-esque like writing in the story and things that don't feel revised. But it also that underlying like thing, like a lot of these stories have, I think is really an interesting idea. Like I think
like somebody having like a Groundhog Day like fucking. Just like a reoccurring nightmare case, like a cop dealing with that, excuse me, is a pretty terrible setup, or like not terrible, but like a pretty terrifying setup for something. I don't know, like I don't think that can be like your twist really for a short story. Or at least like it's not really paid off here. Like,
I mean,
it doesn't really like what's wrong with like Beck's interpretation of events and like the details of the story don't connect smoothly.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I appreciate that. Like, you start to end with the wind down ending is that Men in Black type. You didn't see anything here. Clearly, it's like your eyes being open to the fact that there's some government force out there because there's something beyond our regular understanding, so that it's like that's kind of whatever, but it's kind of cliche. And then like I appreciate the twist afterwards, like wait, something's permanently like affected us here and it doesn't make sense, but it was so abrupt and then ended so abruptly. Like you said, the payoff isn't quite there.
Like like I said, the idea is cool, but like it feels like it only just gets introduced at the end, and there's so many more questions that it just sort of leaves you with that. It's kind of like, okay, unless you're gonna like keep building on this, like this is a neat idea that like I don't know, I'd like to see it elaborated on more.
Yeah, and the only other thing is and as much as I'm okay laughing at like especially like fictionalized police officers, because you can easily point out.
Yeah.
You can easily point out situations in real life where they, like, their job that they're supposed to do, they decide, nope, I'm out of here. And on the flip side, like, nobody expects anybody to be like, oh, well, if you walk into this, like, fire, you're going to 100% die. Like, go do that. Yeah. But it's like there's situations where you should back off because you don't do anybody any good if you're just, like, walking in to get your head blown off. But
yeah, I've heard, like, stories from people in, like, fire departments and stuff. And they talk about, like, how, like, pissed off people are that they can't, like, save their house that's burning. And it's because, like, you know...
It's unsafe.
Yeah, it's like, you know, depending on what you got going on in the house and how big the fire's gotten, they can do some stuff and maybe save it. But, like, you know, if you got a fucking, you know, bunch of goddamn live ammo and shit... You know, they're not going to go into it. Like, you know, it's
I mean, it's one of those things. It's the difference between you have a job that your life's at risk, but it doesn't mean you're expected to, like, automatically, like, put yourself in a situation where the most likely outcome is you die. Now, like, sometimes people do. Sometimes people have that, like, heroism and they do it, and sometimes they die and sometimes they don't. But that's not your job, is to get yourself killed. It's just that, you know, that's a side effect that it could happen. So there's that, but I felt like this story was written, like, the whole time I'm picturing the, like, what was the one, loaded gun, like the parody of Lethal Weapon, like
Naked Gun.
Well, no, not quite naked. There was like there was one with that was literally like, and Naked Gun too, as well. I mean, but there was like a loaded weapon that was a straight, like, riff on Lethal Weapon and more the action. You know, Naked Gun was more a riff on the 70s, like the older police, like buddy cop movies, and whereas the Loaded Weapon was off the action, like the 80s action cop movies. But I that's the kind of cops I was picturing here. Like, they didn't really ground the characters enough to make them seem realistic, but that's what I mean when you're writing a creepypasta. That's forgivable, in my opinion, because you're not sitting there iterating your characters and researching and saying, well, what was this person's, like, childhood like? You're just writing a...
Yeah, like, I think the whole setup is appropriately campy, which means you can kind of go light on the character development, and you don't need much more than, like, he's a cop and this is the situation.
And I do appreciate, because we picked on this on a bunch of these, they don't go the other way, where we've had stories where, like, oh, you know, when I was a kid, we moved and we had to make new friends. But at my old house, I used to play with model trains, and I had a good friend. And it's like they go into, like, a 4-paragraph essay on, like, what their past life was like. That has nothing to do with anything. So they didn't go that route.
Yeah, that's true.
I appreciate that. But yeah, like I said, it was very campy. It was probably not the best written story.
I was reading along. It seemed fine.
Yeah,
like,
we've definitely had worse. It didn't contradict itself. It didn't call one of their main characters by 2 different names halfway through, like somebody did. I don't remember which of us that was. My memory is pretty foggy at this point. But
yeah, it could be anyone. But no, like I said, if I had any, like, criticism of the writing itself, it's that it's got neat core ideas, but it kind of just jumps like from one to the other without, like, really connecting it neatly. So yeah, it just sort of leaves you with a lot of questions, which, you know, is fine to a point, but it's also like, if your reader has too many questions, it just sort of ends up being like, what the fuck did I just read? You know?
Right.
And it's like, why were the men in black there if it was all a Groundhog Day thing? You know?
Yeah, I think we probably talked about it, and I've read a lot about that, where, like, everybody talks about the twist endings, and there's, like, major, like, Hollywood, you know, directors and movie writers that fuck it up.
Totally.
Because it's a real fine balance of, and maybe that's what this could have done, and it would have just been a few little things. Like, the basic rule of thumb is if you just throw in a twist at the very end to like you're going one direction the whole time and then you're like, psych, it's this. That's very unsatisfying for the reader or watcher or viewer or whatever, the person consuming the piece. The way to do a good twist is you kind of hint at it, but so subtly that you don't necessarily think about it throughout the story. Like they could have had little things in here, like when they first came into the house after they saw Carol go in and had them say, well, I don't see him anywhere. And then, you know, you can play that off as the other character, like, oh, slip of the tongue, or maybe he's talking about the person in the bodysuit, you know, whatever. Just little, like mention, sprinkles in there. That
like, you can't just, like, throw out Jack at the end, the name Jack at the end. Like, that needs to be something reoccurring. Not that, like, you have to reveal it to your main character, what the connection is necessarily. Because, again, it's not bad to leave the reader with questions.
Like I said, you want them. The best breadcrumbs are the ones that you have no idea you even noticed until after you get the twist, and then you start thinking back. You're like, wait a fucking second.
Yeah, but like, this whole time, like, you're reading that entire story, like the only plot relevance the name Jack has to you is just like, man, Beck's a fucking idiot. He didn't pay attention to any of that.
Yeah, like my mind's like buzzing here was just a different idea. Like I said, like having him say, "Oh, where did he go?" When you go into the house, that just as a like one-off line, and then like he could even have, especially as campy as it's written, after like the first time, and be like, man, talk about like, I don't know, Jack shit crazy or something like that, where you think, well, maybe that was just a phrase, and then you know he's actually referring to a guy named Jack the whole time, but you keep it, but it's really, really hard to do too, because you got to do it in a way that's believable, that like two people having a different experience don't realize they're having a different experience until the very end. So that's the kind of thing, like we say, on a fully fleshed out story, if you're making this into a short story or a novel or something, those are the things you sit down and try to, like, you come up with ideas and flesh them out, and some of them work, some don't, but you develop them. On a creepypasta, you tend to not do that. Which is why there's so many of these creepypastas that it'd be easy to like kind of pick them apart and make fun of them. So many times we get done reading a creepypasta and I'm like, fuck, that makes me want to sit down and like develop this idea like myself. I don't do it because it's somebody else's idea. But maybe if I ever listened to our own advice on writing and stuff when we do these episodes, maybe I could actually write something halfway decent. Because I still do that too, where you sit down and you write something, and I might like go through and like proofread it, but I've never really sat down and developed an idea. Because once you have it, you're like, "Yep, that's the story."
Yeah, that's the idea. Hit publish. Good to go.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is probably like, you know, besides like grammar errors and shit that I'm too lazy to proofread, this is probably like the biggest knock I have on myself as a writer is like, I don't want to flesh shit out.
Right. Like, you're like, my brain done did the thinky part. I'm
coming up with an idea was hard, and I want bed. So yeah, thanks Outlaw for
my outlaw.
Yeah, my outlaw.
But the best part is every time you say the name, you become in possession of outlaw.
Yeah.
Like, but
my outlaw. It's like my buddy doll. Like. My fucking registered criminal.
So yeah, and congratulations, out of the handful that I went through to pick, yours was the one that I by far was like, yeah, I want to do this one.
I can fit that in 45 minutes.
That's exactly what it is. You just scroll through and you don't read them. You're just like, nope, too short. Nope, too short. Nope, too long. Nope, too.
And if you would like your show read on the Creepypasta or a non-essential podcast, make sure that we can fit it into an hour, because I don't want to go
hour tops. Like, and if you go the full hour, just know by the end we're going to really pick apart your story, because we'll be in a bad mood.
We're probably good to ramble about 20 minutes on sports.
Oh yeah, that too.
So really like 40 minutes. Don't push it.
Yeah, I really aim for 20 if you go over a little bit.
And if we choose your story, you might get the chance to have it heard by two people who pretty much don't care.
I would absolutely love it if we had a listener submitted Like, hey, do you guys want to? Actually, I say that, but what would happen is when you get submitted, and it'd be so bad we couldn't do it, and then it just turns awkward.
It would be, what would suck? We get one that was like genuinely good, and like we can't commentate. It's like there's nothing wrong with it.
It never appears on the show, but like 6 months later, I start the show by saying, "Hey, some big news! I got a story published."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So send it in. If it's bad, we'll read it. If it's good, we'll steal it. How about that?
Don't send it in. Don't give us like escape clauses. Like preparing for this show is not that hard, but
I do occasionally get heads up and recommendations for actual topics, like different things, and I always appreciate that because that's less thinking for me by far.
I don't get that because the people who give them to you, I probably fucking blocked.
Yeah.
They said something fucking mean to me once.
Well, one of them's a friend in like real life.
Yeah.
So although
he's
he gives me a lot of ideas and they're like all really good, and then I forget about him or I go to research them. Like, this topic's too good. I would have to take notes for a month, and that's too much work. I've got a whole bunch of topics in my half written.
It's a 40-minute show. The notes, I will not write more than a half an hour.
And I don't, if it's something that I need more than, like, I think the last, was it the last topic I did or the one before that? I had like 5 sources, and I think that's the most I've ever had, and that was too fucking many.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of stories that I started because I'm like, oh, this is a really good story, and then I realized it's so complicated. I'm like, the only way to tell it is to do actual work. Nope. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know why I'm dragging this out. We're done.
Yeah, it's what you do, man.
Uh-huh. It's my one break in a week away from either work or dealing with kids. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
I mean, for now, like, we got to flip that. All right, you got 2 kids now. Get 2 mics. Set them up. You know, they have to do it. You get the rest of the time for yourself.
Well, the one's certainly way too young. She just screams. Although she'd be great for the backdrop sound
I just
effects for a
scream. I just
Creepypasta.
scream.
Right.
I just fucking whine and bitch, and I haven't fucking aged at all since I was a toddler.
Lincoln would be great because she's super smart, but the one thing that she's lagging behind on is her speech. Like, she has a hard time saying the words. Like, she knows them.
She would be right at home.
Well, the thing is, everybody loves that. She'd be that, like, TikTok cute kid that's like, it's queen. But it would be more like, I nearly shit my pants, and it would be great. That's how we would finally get like an audience.
Yeah, it's cute when she does it. When I say it, I get our podcast shut down. Yeah,
we're just sophomoric idiots when we do it, but and she would do it because she's also at that age where she starts repeating everything, which is dangerous. The big bad words I've been pretty good at, or lucky avoiding in front of her, but like. This one's not even really a bad word, except it's just funny coming out of a 3-year-old's mouth. Yesterday, she was riding her tricycle, and she had one of her dolls in the back, and I didn't even think of it, and its hair got caught in the axle, and it was winding up, and didn't notice until it got to the point that the axle seized up. And she's like, "Oh, my bike won't move," and I'm like, "I thought it was stuck on our like sidewalk crack." And when I realized what happened, I was like, "Crap!" And she goes, "Oh, crap!" And I was like, "No, don't say that." Like, I really don't care if she says it, but if they say it at school, they're probably gonna have a problem.
You can't say
it.
crap. And then,
but the way
I wouldn't be a good parent because they would call me about that, and I'd be like, "She said crap, so what?"
My first question would be like, did she use it in the correct context? And then they say yes. I'd say, then she's fine.
Did she crap, or was something being crap to her? You know, like, why are you calling me at work?
And how well did she say it? Like I said, because she's getting there. She's coming along with her speech, but she said, when she said, "Oh crap," she said it perfectly clear. And it was like, good job.
That is all you need. Like, I didn't get any sort of grasp on the English language until I just started letting loose. And that was about the 3rd grade.
Right. Well,
and I swore all the fucking time.
She's 4 or 5 years from the 3rd grade, so she's way ahead of her. She's
Good.
Advanced.
Good.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's the thing. Like, they would call me, I'd be like, "Oh, she said crap. Well, that's nothing compared to what I'm going to say if you interrupt me at work." And then I hang up on them. Don't take crap from your child's school.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is, she would be great. I think another year, and we can do that. We'll get another mic going, and then neither of us have to talk. We'll just get her going.
Yeah, this is America. We're about to celebrate America's birthday when this shit comes out. And we're all about child labor in this fucking country. Yeah. You understand?
I'll tell you, I've all but given up drinking. I think I've had like 3 or 4 drinks in the last 2.5 months. Health thing. I've been losing weight consistently when you quit drinking alcohol. Go figure. But if we can get her to do the show and all we have to do is sit here and laugh, I'm going back to the drunk shows. Like, I'll be drinking the whole time.
All we got to do is count that paper.
Think of all the T-shirts. I still have my list of like T-shirt phrases. They're all from about 2 months worth of shows because we thought it was funny. I started keeping track and then we lost interest. But that 2 months had a lot of gems in it.
Yeah.
Limey Peppermint Bastards, I think, is my favorite still.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. I'm gonna find a way to like make Steve's kids the face of this show.
Yeah.
So I can just like get that bank.
It's fine as long as you share it. We'll split it.
Yeah.
The kids don't get any. That's your typical child talent thing.
No, this is like a lemonade stand. This is all about character.
It's the Disney approach to entertainment. You use the kids because people like kids. You don't pay the kids. You keep the money because they're kids.
Yeah, and once they, say like, "Hey, I brought a lawyer here. I want my money," then you can say like, "I've taught you everything I can," and then you give them like $20.
Here you go. Start a singing guru.
Yeah. I'm keeping your masters, by the way. So, yeah, that's the show this week. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.